Hi there. Welcome to or welcome back to Tiffany's Books, where I read books and I talk to you about them. I'm working on figuring out how I'm sitting now that I have a mic so that you can still hear me when I back up, but also see a bit more of my shelves maybe. So, and I'm not high in your face anymore. So let's see how this works. Things have already gone off the rails and it's October 3rd. It's October 3rd. I haven't seen Mean Girls in almost 20 years, but anyway, things are already off the rails. I started out this month with a great plan of let's be really mindful about my October TBR. I keep making TBRs that are way too big and I'm too much of a mood reader. And so I get I'm going to read I normally read between 10 and 20 books. So let me pick 9 books that I'm going to read. And then I read 3 of them. And then I feel really bad. And instead of doing that this month, I thought, let's make a small TBR of 3 books that I'm already hyped to read. I'm planning on reading them at the start of the month and everything's going to be great. And then I messed it up. So I messed it up. So this is going to be a TBR and a wrap up for September. So I'll give you my original plan and then I'll tell you what happened. So first off, I have a carryover from September, which is The Sky on Fire by Jen Lyons. This is a heist. It's very D&D-esque. I'm really enjoying it. I'm about halfway through. It's just that the font is small and the pages are big, and I have not been very good about physical reading lately. I've just been kind of feeling a bit slumpy, a bit overwhelmed, and like I said, a lot of that is because of the fact that I'm feeling bad about the fact that I'm not reading everything I said I'm going to read, which is a me problem, 100% a me problem, because I'm still reading a lot, and I need to get the fuck over that. So the second thing that I'm reading, and I've already started this one as well, is I'm doing a buddy read of Aragon with Rachel Reads Fantasy on Instagram, as well as my friend Carrie, who runs an Instagram for books with me. We are the _auto readers. And I'm excited to read this. I'm a few chapters in. I've got all my things tabbed for how much I need to read each day. I didn't read last night, so I've got to now read up to page 110 tonight, so that I can stay on track. So that's where I'm at for this. I'm enjoying this. I started this because I missed all the early 2000s YA stuff because I was the perfect age. I was 16 when this book came out. I should have been perfect for it, but I just wasn't into fantasy at the time. I loved fantasy movies, but every fantasy book I tried to read, apart from Stephen King's Dark Tower series, which I loved, just did not work for me. So I missed this book. I recently read another Christopher Paolini, which I'll talk about in my wrap up, and I just decided I really wanted to try it. I do want to do a thing where I go back and read a lot of the early 2000s YA books that I missed, things like Hunger Games and Divergent, and I will not be doing Twilight. I already know that one's not for me. So, but those types of things that I missed. And then the last 2 things I was going to read were, I have a advanced reader copy of The Fury of the Gods by John Gwynne. I just finished Hunger of the Gods, and that ending killed me. So I was like, okay, I need to start that right away. So that's probably part of why I'm struggling with Sky on Fire, because I just want to get to Fury of the Gods, and I could probably drop Sky on Fire, but if you noticed, it's a library book. It's due back in 2 weeks. I've already renewed it twice. I just need to get it done. So we're going to finish Sky on Fire. And then the other thing I was going to read is another advanced reader copy of Don't Let the Forest In by C.G. Drews. I believe it's C.G. Drews. Don't Let the Paper Fury on Instagram. I got this advanced reader copy a couple months ago. It comes out this month. It should be perfect for spooky season. I really want to read it. It is a YA horror that is also queer, and I'm looking forward to it. So those are the things that are on my, started off the month on my TBR. Dragons and horror. And I somehow ended up with 3 dragon books in a row. So those are things I really wanted to get to. I did have one final library hold-in because I was getting overwhelmed by the library books that kept coming through on Libby, and then wanting to read them but not having the time and having to push some back and picking up another one, and then just getting overwhelmed with, oh my god, I have all these books and then not reading anything, I decided to just cancel all my Libby holds. I kept one library hold because it is a novella and it is one of this year's horrors, and it was on my horror that I'm really looking forward to for 2024 video that I did. I still want to get to some of those books this year, so hopefully I can find them or get to them. I do own at least one that I need to get to. So this is the Crypt of the Moon Spider. So this hold came in yesterday, so I went to the library to pick it up. The Crypt of the Moon Spider by Nathan Ballingrud. I have not read anything from him, but I am excited for this book. It's only 100 pages. Look how tiny that is. It's only 100 pages, and also like the margins are huge, so this should not be a problem to get through. I'm very excited about it. This, from the synopsis, which is covered by my library sticker, is essentially a alternate timeline of if asylums in the this is 1920s were on the moon, and what if when you went there for mental health issues, you were treated with some spider silk to alter your brain. This makes it feel to me like we are discussing how women with depression and anxiety and OCD and other neurodivergences were treated in the 40s and 50s with lobotomies. Majority of lobotomy patients were women. I would assume a lot of them were also other minorities, but I don't have the stats on that. So I'm looking forward to this. From every review I've heard, this is unsettling. That is the keyword that shows up in so many of the reviews is unsettling. It has a 4.15 on Goodreads. So I'm really looking forward to it. While I was there, I always look at the lucky day, and which is, I don't know if other libraries do this, but Pierce County Library, the library that I go to, does this thing where they have this lucky day shelf, and if there's anything on it, you can check it out that day. You cannot put a hold on it. You cannot renew it. It is due back in 3 weeks. So my friend has had a very, very long library hold on the Ministry of Time. So it was on there. I grabbed it for her. I sent her a message. She didn't get back to me right away, which is totally fine. I was like, hey, I'm going to grab it. If you don't want it, I'll just drop it off tomorrow on my way to work, and it's fine. She texts me. She's like, with a picture of her with it. She's like, I got it last night. So I was like, well, since I have it, impromptu buddy read. This is, if I remember correctly, this is time travel-y type stuff. It's romance. It's not necessarily my genre, so we're going to step out of my comfort zone and do a little buddy read with my friend. We kind of have a plan. She's joining me on the Aragon buddy read as well, and she is just finishing up Station 11, which she said she loves, by the way. So she's just finishing that up, and then when she finishes that up, she's going to start this. So I have a day and a half to finish Sky on Fire. So that is my plan for tonight, is to finish that so I can start the Ministry of Time to try to knock it out. The other thing I picked up is I noticed my library has, I'm so excited, they have The Girl from the Other Side. I've been reading this in digital, but they had them there and in physical. So I just grabbed two volumes. I grabbed 2 volumes of this. And I'm just going to read them in between things when I just want to sit and chill and read something, because these are read them in a sitting or 2, depending on how quickly you want to read type of things. It's a manga. I'll get into it in my wrap-up. So I've added these to my TBR. Let's talk about the audiobooks. So when I also made my plan, I was like, I'll read one audiobook. I already had it picked out. Patricia Wants to Cuddle is a comedy horror that is queer. That is all I know about it. I did watch a review from Willow Talks Books about it, but do I remember that review? I don't. I just remember going, okay, based on what Willow said, I want to read that book. So I wanted to read it for doing a queer horror genre challenge on Storygraph. Here's the challenge. I'm excited for it, and I was like, let me try to knock some more of these off, because a lot of the ones that I've been reading have all fit in the same category, so let me try to branch out and fill those other categories. So this is a comedy horror, so I was like, okay, let's try and get that done. So it is actually free in the Audible Plus section, so I put it on I loaded it up, and then I watched Literary Diversions Fits Along, where we were talking about about Ship of Magic, and everyone was getting hyped for reading The Mad Ship, and I was like, I read these in June, but this is making me really just want to reread it, so I'm re-listening to The Mad Ship. I'm already 25% into it, so yeah, I always will love the mad ship. I'm obsessed with the live ship Ophelia. I want to be her when I grow up. Like, I love this series so much. So that's my current obsession. I also went through and to fill out some of those other genres in that queer horror challenge. I downloaded or checked out a few other audiobooks from Libby. I'm not going to mention them right now because I don't know which ones I'm going to get to, but one of them is a reread of Our Wives Under the Sea through audio. I'm looking forward to that. It was one of my favorite books of last year. So revisiting it in audio instead of physical should be something interesting. So when I finish those, assuming I finish them before the month is over, I have taken all the books that I have bought this year, and I have not taken the label off this jar, and I've put them into a pickle jar. Very simple. Everybody does a TBR jar, but the way that I'm going to do it is that will be the only book that I will be focusing on. I will not be reading something digital. I will not be reading another physical book. I will be listening to audio, and I will be reading that book until it is done. And if I don't want to finish it, that means I probably need to DNF it for the year, or I need to rehome the book. So we'll see what happens. I still have some books piled around me from things I bought recently that don't have a spot on my shelf yet. So there's some good things in there, some long fantasy that has been intimidating, some things that I really want to read. So we'll see what happens. Quick recap of what I read. I read 2 manga. So I did read the third and fourth book of The Girl from the Other Side, but which is this series by Nagabe. I really like these. These are dark and cozy at the same time. It's about this girl here and teacher. I mean, look at this one. They're like in a boat in the rain. Like, it's about this little girl and teacher. And there's a plague going around that transforms people into these creatures, like so. And the little girl, Shiva, is living with teacher. She seems to have something special about her, but we don't know quite what it is yet. So more things are getting revealed. I'm really enjoying these. If you want to know more about them, both Reads with Rachel and D, I believe, is Don't Fret. Don't Fret, Read Books, or Don't Fret, or something. I can't remember his channel name because I followed him when it was something else. But I watch his videos a lot still, and he just did a recent overview of the entire series. So check out the 2 of their videos if you want more about this. I'll try to put up a screenshot of each of the videos because they covered them very, very well. So then I read A Dark and Drowning Tide, which I'm obsessed with. This is a new release by Allison Saft. It is a dark academia. It's advertised as dark academia, queer fantasy romance. I don't necessarily know if I would classify it 100% as dark academia, but I'm no expert in dark academia. So for me, because we are not spending time in the institution and learning, we're out in the field doing research, which I love. I've spent so many years as a field research biologist. It's part of what I do for my life. Like, I love seeing people out in the field doing research. And that part of it I loved. I've recently learned the term backpack fantasy, which is kind of what the Lord of the Rings is, where we're like traveling and doing a bunch of stuff. And Sword Heart has that, where you're going back and forth down the road and stuff. That's a backpack fantasy. This is backpack fantasy, but it's a sapphic backpack fantasy. And I was kind of obsessed with that. The romance was very cute. I really liked it. It was satisfying the way that they went from academic rivals to kind of acting like they hate each other, to getting along, to building a friendship, to admitting feelings for each other, was very satisfying for me. The arc of that, it didn't feel like insta-lovey. It didn't feel like it was there just so that we would have that there. It felt natural and organic, and I really liked that. I also really liked that because we had 2 female characters, we were able to have a dark and broody woman and also a very optimistic woman. And so I kind of liked seeing those 2 sides reflected in each other. I really enjoyed this. This will be the first special edition that I bought because I kind of fell in love with the artwork on the special edition, and I found out it's actually fairly cheap to buy an Illuma Crate edition of this. So I have that on the way, and I'm very excited. Yeah, so I really recommend that. I'm going to do a long video about it. Then I'm not doing these in order. I got an arc from Marie Howalt to read The Wenemac Web, which is the third, I keep saying iteration. It's not an iteration, it's a volume or it's a volume. Installment. That's the word I was looking for. That's the I word. It's the third installment in the Colibri Investigation series. This is a planet hopping private investigator series. Marie reached out to me. She had looked through some of the books that I'd really said that I loved and was like, hey, we have a lot of similarities in taste. Would you like to do an advanced reader copy of my book? I think you would really like it. And I did really enjoy it. It felt very nostalgic while also being futuristic. It felt very cozy while also being action-packed. A lot of the things that I really liked, it's a novella. It's only like 140-something pages. I think the world building was really good and really solid. It was multimedia, and I really liked that aspect that we had like clippings from like books and clippings of like interviews for people and stuff kind of put into the middle to kind of build the world around us. I thought was really unique, interesting. And I would really like to check out more of this. So this book is out. It came out middle of last month from Spaceboy Press. So a small publisher and a small series of novellas. And I really recommend them. I've definitely enjoyed them. I would like to continue and start from the beginning. I think it might be more satisfactory if I did, but you can read each of these independently without spoiling previous ones or needing to read other ones for context. So that is kind of a plus. What else did I read? Okay, the Christopher Paolini that I read To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, which is a very hard sci-fi that's pretty intense from Christopher Paolini. Reading the author's note was interesting. I did this on audio, and actually the audio was really good. So I had no idea anything about Christopher Paolini going into this, and so I was skeptical about having a middle-aged man write a book with a female main character, given the context of the book. But I was impressed, actually. I thought he did a really good job with some sensitive subjects in a very good way. A lot of times when you have this, it could be really male gazy, and I don't think it was, and I appreciated that. I'm always skeptical about sci-fi because of the history of how sci-fi classics treat women. So following Kira, who is a xenobiologist, and this might just be a theme for me. Maybe I just like following biologists, given that I am one. So she's a xenobiologist, so she studies alien life forms. And up until now, she's pretty much just studied molds and fungus. But some sort of event happens, and she ends up making a symbiotic contact with an alien something. She doesn't know if it is an animal or a cyborg or a nanobot type thing or a combination of those things. And her discovery of this triggers this intergalactic war between an alien race and the humans and potentially something else that's out there. And as the story unfolds, we get interaction with the military, with an independent, almost pirate crew, which felt very kind of Firefly-esque in a lot of ways, but very much not as well. And so she ends up joining with them, getting involved in this war, and it's just, things are constantly happening. It was very, very long. It's like a 38-hour audiobook. It's very long, but I think it kept me interested. I thought it had a lot of heart. It had a lot of sensitivity. And I just really, really liked it. I thought it was smart without being in your face pretentious about how smart it was. So I recommend that. I, again, want to do a longer review on it because I did really enjoy it. Okay. I read The Hunger of the Gods. I point because both books are up there behind me. So I read The Hunger of the Gods as a buddy read on Instagram. Absolutely loved it. I was trying to read some of it physically, but I ended up just switching to the audio wholly. I do like the audio. I still think the audio narrator does some weird things with women's voices, but it's whatever at this point. I'm going to read the last one physically. This was a very good second installment. We got some additional character POVs. We had some heartbreaking scenes. We had some like heartbreaking and like sad and some heartbreaking and joyful type of scenes. And just so much stuff happened that I need to know what's happening next in the next installment. So I think this was a 5-star for me, where the Shadow of the Gods was a 4. I think the writing in this is much improved. And the flow, it's like John Gwynne has gotten his flow of how he's telling the story, kind of. So I know he's already established author before the series came out, but it feels like he established himself in this world, in this book. So I really enjoyed it. I'm very much looking forward to it. The one that I did do a very long review of is The Mill of the Many. I apologize for the length of that review. If you have watched it or have seen it and gone, feel free to skip through it and skip around, honestly. It's very long, but I did go in detail in what happens. And that book itself is very long. It's almost 900-page fantasy book. Partway through, I had to return it to the library, the digital copy, because there were so many people waiting to read it. So I did change over to audio and finish it out on audio. And I can't say if that was better or worse. I personally don't like Viz. Viz is an orphan, and essentially he's the chosen one to throw over this government. And I just find that so hard to read these days. He's 17. A lot of his, he's such a Gary Stu or a Marty Stu. He's just so good at everything he tries every single time. And James Islington tries to give us reasons for that, because he was trained in this and he was trained in that and he was trained by the best and he was trained by the best. And I can't get behind that. I don't care. I want to see a character struggle. And also he's a character who his first response to everything is anger and rage and frustration. And I don't enjoy people or characters who act that way. And if you've read A Dark and Drowning Tide and gone, oh, but then how come you like Lorelai? And I think it's because Lorelai, her first instinct was to block and be like, no, I'm not going to get close. But then she always was like, but what if? She tried to figure out if she was having the right gut reaction for her if she was trying to have the right gut reaction. And she did change as the story went on. And I think because it was a shorter story and we spent less time for her to hit that character development, and after almost 900 pages, Viz still has not hit that point in character development. So it was a struggle for me. Also, angry women are easier to deal with than angry men for some reason. And the way that Lorelai's anger manifested itself differently than Viz's did. Viz's anger reacted in violence a lot of times, and that is also more uncomfortable for me. So I just did not like Viz as a character. So being in his head for almost 900 pages or almost 40 hours was a lot of time to be in that headspace. Okay, I think that puts me on the very last. Oh, no. I forgot about, I read on audio, I finished Don't Fear the Reaper and The Angel of Indian Lake. Those were really, really good wrap up to a series about a girl who is obsessed with horror and convinced that the slasher is starting up in her town. And the way that Stephen Graham Jones writes from her perspective is so brilliant. He does such a good job. I was so impressed with it. I, before this, had only read The Only Good Indians, which I liked, but also found a bit confusing and a bit jarring, but I liked it. And then I read I Was a Teenage Slasher. I Was a Teenage Slasher, and I really liked the way he did Tolly, and I really liked the way he did Amber, and I was like, okay, I'm here for this. Let me read the Angel of Indian Lake series. So I read that one, and I cannot recommend this series enough. I cried, I laughed, I had all of the range of emotions over it. I loved it. I think it was so brilliant. It had so much heart and soul put into it, and it was so much about connections to people and finding yourself and accepting what's trying to accept what's going on around you. And I think one of the main things that made it so good was discussing Jade's use of her movie obsession as a way to dissociate herself from her absolute shitty surroundings. So genuinely liked that a lot. And then the very last thing I read was Slug. and then it came up on Audible, was like, hey, do you want to read this? And I was like, sure, because it was free. Didn't cost a credit or anything. So I was like, oh, all right, I'll pick it up. Weird. So the first story is supposed to be about a girl. It's like a girl changes into a slug, or metamorphoses into a slug is the preview. And yes, but also it's monster smut, which I was not expecting. And the rest of it it's very interesting. It deals a lot with self-discovery, sexual identity, gender identity, and gender fluidity, and the weird ways in which you can view yourself in a surrealist world. And so it was good, but it was a little too weird for me. I think if you liked Carmen Maria Machado's Her Body and Other Parties, and you were like, but it could be weirder, that's Slug. If you liked Organ Meats, but wanted it even more weird and maybe shorter, Slug and Other Stories. Night Bitch is definitely like kind of along the lines, the literary type of surrealism, but Night Bitch is not as weird or as graphically sexual as Slug and Other Stories was. That was by Megan Milks. Very odd. I don't know if I enjoyed it or not. I was like, this is a solid 3 because I'm like, okay, sure, but also what the fuck? So read at your own risk. But so that's what I read. That's what I read last month, and that's what I'm planning on reading this month. So my plan is to basically check in with you. I'm gonna start checking in with you every week. I'm gonna try to check in with you on Mondays and be like, so like Sunday night I'll record and be like, this is what I read. That could be difficult, but we'll see. I'll be like, this is what I read, this is what I'm reading. So sometime in the beginning of the week, I'm going to try and give you like little checkups and maybe pull something from here and see what we're going to be reading. So that's my plan. I'm working on a full, here's my reactions to Aragon as we go through. So it'll be spoilers, and it's a 20-year-old book. So don't come at me for spoiling a 20-year-old book. Actually, none of you ever come at me for spoiling anything anyway, because that's what I do. So I'm going to be doing a video for that, and then I want to do a couple reviews. So if there's something on this list that you want to know about, please let me know. And I will let you know about it after you let me know to let you know. So anyway, we're going to continue this month and still trying to be very mindful about how I'm feeling about the things that I'm doing, so that I can actually sit here and make videos for you without being like overwhelmed by stuff. So on that note, I'm going to go read.